Okay, so now we're going to make adjustments to our low pressure switch. So in the previous video, I did do a cut-in pressure. I documented all of our pressures here on my construction cardboard. There we go. Let's see if you can see that. That's not bad. So the air cut-in, this is a tankless air compressor on the bottom, and it basically just turns on and off based on just a pressure switch. This little gray guy up here. So if you've got a tankless air compressor, you cannot have an air maintenance device. It's just gonna, don't do it. If you put an air maintenance device on a tankless air compressor, it's going to cause the air compressor to cycle on and off erratically, because the switch is gonna tell it to turn on. Your regulator on the air maintenance device is going to only allow small passes of air once it's relatively close to where it's satisfied. So don't do it. If you've got a switch like this and a tankless, then you just got to pipe her straight. There's going to be a differential in the cut in and cut out. That's just the way it is. If you do have an air maintenance device, there is no cut in, cut out other than for the compressor itself. But your air maintenance device will have a regulator, so it will always stay at a constant pressure. So if I had an air maintenance device, I wouldn't have air cut in, cut out. I would actually just put system air. That's all I have to go off of. So based on my other video, I basically said it's important to understand the sequence of operations. This is probably the hardest switch to set up. And the reason being is because we need to understand how the valve works. The biggest bits of information is I need to know the cut in, cut out. So I know my air compressor will turn itself on when system air reaches 30 pounds of air. So when my system reaches 30 pounds, that compressor turns on. It's going to stay on until it reaches 43 and shut itself off automatically. I need to document my water supply pressure. Now, in this case, this is a municipal source. It's 63 PSI right now. I'm sure maybe nighttime it might bump up to maybe like 70 or something like that. Who knows? Depends on the underground supply, but we're not going to expect drastic changes. So when we do a trip test, I did a partial trip test. So basically what I did was I started draining the air off slowly, and I wanted to see, based on a water supply of 63 PSI, you always want the water supply to be as high as possible. The higher the water supply on a purely differential type dry pipe valve, the higher the air pressure will be when it trips. So if my water supply pressure was actually 100, that valve trip pressure would probably change to something like 20 or 20 pounds or something. I don't know. I'm picking a number, but the higher the water supply, the higher the air pressure that it trips at. So there's a relationship between those two numbers. So I did a partial trip test based on a constant water supply of 63. That's as high as it's ever going to go. My system tripped at 12. So if I know my air turns on at 30 and my valve itself trips at 12, I like to just kind of pick a number somewhere in there between. What do we say? Let's call that 18 pound differential. So 9 pounds on top of 12 is about 21. So dead smack center. If I wanted my low pressure to come in right in the middle, I'll say 21. As I mentioned before, it's the higher you get your low air pressure, the better. So I'm going to aim for 23. When my system air gauge reaches 23, that's when I want my supervisory. That's when I want my switch to change states. So the higher the better, and the only reason I say that is because this is a warning signal. Monitoring is going to be, there's an offsite monitoring station. They're going to be monitoring the switch. So when that switch changes states, they're going to call the customer and say, hey, you guys have a low pressure in your dry system. And basically now they're going to get up out of bed, they're going to come drive down to site, and they're going to say, oh yeah, I've got a leak on my system, and they'll shut the valve, they'll do whatever they want to do. But as I said, the higher up you get it, the better, but you don't want to be too close to the cut-in, because even though I said it's 30, what if that switch starts to become a little bit not so reliable? Maybe it starts to turn on around 28, maybe 29, maybe 27. You kind of want to pick that happy medium. So, and you certainly don't want to go low. If my trip pressure is 12, you don't want to go at like 14 pounds of air. That only gives you 2 pounds of pressure before that valve's about to trip. It doesn't give someone a lot of time to react to a warning signal. So right in the middle is probably best. I'm going to aim for 23. I think that's a very decent spot. And just like the just like the PCVS, just like the PS10, the PS40 is no different. It is a change of state switch. So just to prove it again, I'm going to flip this onto continuity. We've got COM 1 and 2. I don't know what 1 and 2 is. One of them's open, one of them's closed. Your leads don't matter. It's just checking for continuity. So, oh, actually, I don't need to hold this. So as I touch my leads, it starts beeping. Am I even in a shot here? Oh, yeah, it's good. So I'm just gonna go to COM, and whatever this right side one is probably 2. So right there, I know it's an open contact. If I move my red lead over 1, it's gonna start beeping. Perfect. So we know that at least that side's working. Another thing to note, I'm gonna get a little bit of a close-up on this. Don't break that. Another thing to note on this low pressure switch, so just like on the PS10, there's a dial. This side says low, and if you look on the back side, it actually does say high. Yep, there it says high. That doesn't matter. That makes no difference. You can use whatever side you want. They're just telling you that you can change these 2 toggles. So if I wanted to set up a high pressure, let's pretend this said high. You can actually just adjust this, start adjusting this dial accordingly. I know I'm dicking with it right now, but that doesn't really matter because I'm going to change it anyways. But let's say, for example, and don't trust any of this. This is just basically there to show you that the more you screw this in, the higher the pressure that the switch will change states at. So if I wanted to set this to high, let's say, for example, if my air got to 50 PSI, that's when I want to change. I would actually have to pump my system air up to 50. I would need to now adjust this dial and check with the meter when it changes states. So at 50 is when I want to change states, and then the fire alarm guys will actually just choose which contacts they want accordingly. So they could actually use the same switch for 2 different things. Theoretically, they could even call it a low/high pressure. They'd have to T-tap it though, I think. That's a little bit beyond me. I'm not a fire alarm guy, but I guess they could. One side would for sure be monitored over a resistor. The other side they can pull off to the other side. Either way, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Point being is, it is a simple change of state switch. It's either normally open or normally closed contacts. So as I said, I want to aim for 23 is when I want this to change states. So as I said before, one of the things I changed was I added an actual valve here for draining off the water prime level. Last time it did not have that, and I was actually just bleeding air off through the fill cup, and I was kind of scared I was going to get a shot of water to the face. So I didn't let her rip all the way. So all I'm going to do, I've already turned my air compressor off. Just to be safe, just in case I do something dumb, I'm gonna shut the water off. Maybe I let the air drop a little bit too much and don't realize it. I don't want to trip this thing. I already reset this valve once today, and once is enough. So right there, we've killed the water supply to the valve. I could do whatever the hell I want with this thing. Nothing's gonna happen. So I've turned the air off. I am going to screw these back in. Let's see. So again, I can choose whatever I want. Last time I went with a closed contact. This time I'm gonna go with an open contact just for funsies. So I'm gonna use common 1, which is normally open. So just to show you how this works. So you don't hear anything happening. Just to show you what's going to happen is, as I adjust this dial, there you go. You just hear it change states. Now I'm going to tighten it back down. So I'm now, if I'm looking down, bird's eye view, I'm screwing it in clockwise. So I'm increasing the pressure. So I've increased the pressure, and my meter is no longer beeping. But as I back it off, right now it's changed states. So that would be my state change. So it's very simple to set these up. I wanted to aim for a low pressure of 23. So air's off. I don't need to shut that valve. Oh, and actually just to prove to you, I installed a bleeder valve here. So what this does, they are directional. There's actually an arrow on it right here. As I shut this, it just quickly changes state. It bleeds pressure only between this little chamber here. So, well, that's not what I wanted to hear. So here, we've got one state change. As soon as I take the pressure off, now it's changed states again. So it's no longer beeping when I open this back up. Now it's beeping again. These are great just for quickly testing your switch. I don't like them because it encourages bad habits for inspectors. When they're there to test a switch, they're going to close this valve. They're going to see that their panel says, oh yeah, zone 1 low pressure is going off. So that just proves that the switch works, but they haven't actually proven exactly at what pressure it's changing states at. So if I were to have if I installed a T right here right now, and I had a gauge installed, right now it'd be reading the exact same. And then when I shut it, that gauge would drop right down to 0 once I've shut it, because it's only monitoring this, it's only shut off this amount of pressure. So you cannot install, if you install this the wrong way and you close this, it's gonna keep dumping. So these are directional. They're only allowed to be used on air systems as well. So keep that in mind. So we're gonna have that like that. I'm going to install a little zip seal. I'm not going to touch that again. Maybe I will after. We'll save this to the very end. I changed my mind. We're going to go with common 2. That's what's going to happen. We're going to go with the other set of contacts. Cool. There we go. We're good. So, very simple. This is tankless. My air's off, so it's not like I'm going to dump any tank air. I'm actually just going to open my water prime here. I'll show you my nice new valve I installed, so I'm no longer afraid to take a shot of water to the face. This is all going to my drain. Pipe down here. This is just rushing into my drain pipe. I'm pointing at stuff. I'm not even looking at the camera. I'm so sorry. But there's my water prime drain valve. This is directional. So my switch has actually changed states already, but I don't really care about that for now. All I'm looking for is that system air gauge. I want to drop it down to 23 pounds. So the fact that water's spitting up out of this drain cup tells me this check valve doesn't work. Slow it down. Bam, 23. Now that I got my system set at 23, I am just going to adjust my dial. I'm going to go one way or the other. I don't really care. Right there. So again, I don't really care what set of contacts I'm on. I actually just want to hear a change in state. So I know what I can actually do by testing this again. So right now my switch is satisfied. So I've lost air and my switch has changed state. Ready? There we go. We know it's changed state. I've got 0 PSI in this chamber. So that's actually good. I'm glad I didn't zip tie that. And now it's happy again. But I do want my system to be an alarm. I am at 23 pounds of air, maybe 24. Drop it just half a pound. There we go. That's half a pound. Bam, half pound right there. And now I'm going to tighten this in until I change states again. Right there. Now, sometimes these do take, oh, you weren't even, I'm sorry, I wasn't pointing at it. So the slightest movement should set that back. It's happy again. But again, I want that change, that short circuit to happen at 23. So I'm still gonna give it a little push. Sometimes I play with this, it just takes your fingertips right there. So we're in alarm. That's kind of the sweet spot, right about there. And if I close this off again, I drop this down to 0, it's gonna still stay on, right? So we know that that is where we want it to be. So I'm gonna pump this up. As this air goes up, it's really loud when it goes, but once it reaches about 25 pounds of air, maybe 26, the switch should actually change states. So we're just gonna pump this up. Okay, I got about 25 pounds of air. And it has not changed state, so I'm at 25. I'm gonna bleed the air off again. And once I see it's at 23, that's when I wanna hear my meter change state. Again, I'm on continuity, so. So that was about 22. So again, if I back this off, it's going to lower the pressure, so I need to give this a little crank in. 22 is still actually okay, but for the sake of the video, let's try and be a little bit more anal. Alright, here we go. So we're at 27 pounds. We're going to drop it again. Hopefully this time we hit that 23 mark. We're at 23 and a half. You know what? I think we're going to live with it. Maybe 24. I'm good with 24. Like I said, air comes on. Yeah, we'll give it slight. Okay, I'm at 25 again. So these are a little bit tedious to test because you always kind of need to, as much as you can, just adjust it, get your change in state and say, you know, you're good to go. You don't really know for sure. You should always pump it up a little bit past and then drop the air just to double check to make sure that the switch changes state where you want it to. So that's kind of what we're doing now. We know it's close to our 23. I've got it pumped up to 25. Last time I got it to 24 before it went off. I want to see if I can get that 23. Oh, bang on. There we go. It's 23. We got that right on the money this time. We're going to test this one last time. We're back at 25. I'm going to drop it to 23 again. See if I can clear up that check valve. I can literally hear it coming out of this thing. $23, right on the money. So we've only adjusted this one pole. As I said, this is a 2-pole switch. So I've only adjusted this side, which is actually already labeled low. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to adjust the pole on the back so that they both come in at the exact same pressure. Or at least close enough. I think on this one, I'm just gonna put the meter on while it's at 23 and just adjust the dial. My only reasoning for that is because I don't know what company's coming in to wire up this low pressure switch. So odds are they're not gonna have a sprinkler guy here with them to tell them, hey, I set this switch up for this low pole, but I didn't make any adjustments to the back. So knowing my luck, I'll come back and these guys are going to bring their wires in through here. For some reason, decide they're going to want to go through this little hatch and they're going to wire it up to the back side because it's so much harder for them. And, you know, like I said, just my luck, that's what they're going to end up doing. And if I don't make any adjustments to this back pole, it's actually set at the wrong pressure right now. So I don't want them to do that either. So just for the sake of, at least if they do happen to pull a surprise move on me where I can't see them doing it. Like, you have to go out of your way to bring the wires to the back way, but if for whatever reason they do, for some reason, at least now we've kind of covered our bases. I'm not going to get as intricate with it because I don't think they're going to do it, but at least we got that peace of mind knowing that, you know what, we're just gonna hold them there. At least we know that I've done something with it. And at least if they wire it up to the side that says high pressure, at least I know that they're not going to have an issue with it. So I'm just backing off this pole. Am I on? Oh, the meter's not even on. Yeah. So again, I do want to hear that continuity. I can just test it again. It's beeping. I'll kill the air to it, and it should still stay beeping. That's how I know I'm on the right set of contacts. So yeah, if I were to switch contacts, I'm going to go to common 1 over here on this side. I don't hear anything, and then by changing the switch's state, so right now there's pressure on it. Oh, wait, am I not on it? What's going on here? This side's not working. should be beeping. Ooh, I think this set of contacts on the high side doesn't work. Like it should change states. It's not doing anything here. Oh, interesting. Okay. So common 2 work on the high side, but not common 1. So there. Switch change states. Okay, so let's hope they don't use the high side. But either way, we've got this side set up the way we want it set up. Change state, no change state. But we're at 23 pounds, so I do want that alarm. There you go. There we go. We got both sides set up. Like I said, I will leave a note for them to just make sure they use the low side. That's the one we mostly fine-tuned. And that's where we're gonna go with it. So there you go, that's how you set up a switch. Very simple, it's nothing to them. But out of all 3 of these switches we've done, the low pressure one is the one that certainly requires a little bit of tender loving care, I suppose you can call it. It takes a little bit of fine-tuning. It's on there. Terrific. Cool. So that's it.